Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, freshman Assemblyman Greg Koenig joins us here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
It's the Lucky Lexus Cash and Free Play giveaways at Tamarack. Weekly Cash and Free Play winners plus a $20,000 cash winner guarantee. And drive home a brand new Lexus NX30 or walk away with $42,500 in cash. It's a good time to win at Tamarack Casino.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
When in Carson City, Nevada Newsmakers records in the conference room at the Bank Saloon. Coverage of the 2023 legislative session is brought to you by Liberty Dental Plan, making members shine one smile at a time. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you. The Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, your RTC, our community. NV Energy, proudly serving Nevada, providing electricity to 2.4 million electric customers. And by Nevada Builders Alliance, building a better Nevada.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the
And back on Nevada Newsmakers,
broadcast
we're delighted to welcome to the
here
program
is
for
Sam
the first
Shad.
time a freshman Assemblyman Greg Koenig of District 38. And I want to point out, welcome first of all.
Thank you.
And I want to point out that even though you're a freshman, you are not inexperienced in the ways of government. You served on the Churchill County School Board, you served on the Churchill County Commission, and now you're at the legislature. So you really have a wealth of experience. And I want to start out with something that is not legislative, but is really important to the folks of Churchill County and to the state, which is the massive amount of water that's coming down the Carson River into the Lahontan, or into Lake Lahontan. And people are questioning why at this point Lake Lahontan isn't full. Explain what's going on, if you would.
So yeah, I drove by it yesterday, and it's really, really low. You know, I think
With good reason.
yes, yeah, very good reason. So we're in the process of Churchill County is of building their second weir. I mean, back in 2017, it's feast or famine. In 2017, we had way more water than we knew what to do with, and then kind of a drought until now, and now again we have way more water that we know what to do with. But last time in 2017, we did a big ditch that just goes out into the middle of the desert and takes the water out to Stillwater. And we're in the process, Churchill County is, of finishing up a second one of those weirs in the next, it should be done in the next week or so. So we're gonna have two big places where we can divert the water. So if you...
This is to prevent massive flooding.
Yeah, so I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the youth in the community did a service day, and they went around and sandbagged, and I think they sandbagged 22 houses of people who were elderly or, you know, or otherwise unable to do it themselves. And I mean, what a great thing to bring our community together. But Lahontan is empty, but if you look at the Carson River, it is overflowing even at this point. People who have yards along the river that normally is nice and grassy is now, you know, underwater, and I don't think that there's been any houses affected yet, but you know, people's property has gone underwater. So the big trick with Lahontan is if we can control the outflow, then we're in control. But if it fills up and it goes over the spillway, then we don't have any control. And that's when you're going to have some flooding that can cause a lot of damage. So they say up in the mountains right now there's enough water in the snow to fill it between 2 and 3 times. It depends on who you talk to. So
Dr. Robin Titus, the state senator, said on the program that at this point the number is it could be filled 4 times.
Wow. So so from 2 to 4 times is I guess where we're at. But if we weren't draining it as fast as we can and we have to fill it 4 more times, I mean, it's just going to overflow and then it's a big disaster. I think the one thing that's a little bit frustrating is when you look for help from the federal government, from FEMA, if we do nothing and let our town flood, they'll come in and give us funds to fix, what was damaged by the water. But they're not going to contribute anything to us building these big ditches and weirs to prevent that. You'd think it would make sense to pay a little bit up front to prevent all the damage than to pay for all the damage after it's already happened. So yeah, that's where we're at. I think things look, hopefully, I don't know, it's supposed to be 90 this week, and if all that snow melts all at once and comes down, we could be in trouble a little bit. But it's a little counterintuitive saying, well, how come the Lahontan is so empty? But it's because we want to have control of the water coming in and going out.
And eventually will be filled because of this. One of the ironies of all this is that this should have been a year when Fallon wouldn't have gotten nearly as much water as it would normally have gotten because it's not getting water from the Truckee because of the lining of the canal.
Yeah.
And so in a way, that's been a good thing. But I want to ask you just one question about that, which is, as you well know, Fernley is upset that with the lining of the canal, they're going to lose the water that would come from the leakage and would replenish their groundwater. There was discussion on this program about the potential for allowing some water to come from that canal into the Fernley area. Are you in favor of that, against it, neutral?
I'm not a water expert, but from what I hear from TCID is they need to leave that all the way dry so that they can get that lining in correctly.
No, I'm talking about on a permanent basis that there would be allowance for some water to be able to come from that canal, that it wouldn't all just go to Fallon, but the Fernley area that is desperately going to need water.
Somehow connect the Carson over to Fernley? I don't.
So they wouldn't just be dealing with.
Yeah, I don't know. What kind of engineering it would take to, because I think Silver Springs is where the river goes through, just south of Silver Springs there at Fort Churchill. To get that up and over the hill would probably take some sort of engineering above my pay grade, but I'm sure it's possible. You talk about Fernley being affected, but Hazen, which is mostly agriculture, isn't getting any water this season, so it affects them a lot. That's one of the challenges I have in my district, because I have 5 counties. And so this year, because there's so much water, it's not quite as big of an issue. But I have communities at the top of the river, and I have communities at the bottom of the river, and their water needs sometimes oppose each other. So how do I, as a legislator, make decisions that, okay, this decision is going to help Yerington, but it's going to hurt Hawthorne? It makes it challenging, if you're one of those legislatures who's down in Vegas, whose district is 3 square miles, you don't have these issues. But sometimes there's a bill that comes through that could potentially help 2 or 3 of my counties and maybe hurt a couple of the others. So, how do I decide which counties I want to, benefit and which counties I don't? It makes it challenging to have such a big district.
But do you at least have a say in it? Are people listening to you?
I'd hope so. As a freshman in the super minority, how much say do we have? But I pride myself and have made relationships, across the aisle. I feel like I have quite a few friends on the Democratic side, and I feel like I'm good friends with all the Republicans too. But
and you are a pretty conservative guy. That's been a mainstay of your public service career.
Oh yeah, I'm from rural Nevada. That's where the conservatives live. That's my DNA. I'm 5th generation Fallon, and and grew up there, and that's who I am. But maybe not talking water, but I'm an optometrist by trade, and so there's been 3 or 4 different optometry bills that have come through, optometry and optician, and I've had, people come to me even before one of them was presented and said, go over this bill and make sure you like it, it's okay before we present it. And this is coming from a Democrat. And just last week, the 2 of them came up to vote, and I had more than a dozen legislators come to me and say, what's your opinion about this optometry bill? And some of them would even say, well, if you're for it, then I'm good with it too. So,
okay, so doesn't this really lay out the truth about legislatures and even the federal government, which is that the news media likes to make a big fuss about the differences, but there's actually a lot of bipartisanship and common sense that goes on behind the scenes?
Well, there needs to be. And there's certain issues that there's lines you draw in the sand that you're just never going to cross. When it comes to abortion or gun rights or election integrity, those are things that you're never going to budge on those. But an optometry bill, is an optometry bill Republican or is it Democrat? I don't think it's either. I think my campaign slogan when I ran was conservative, common sense leadership. And so I'd like to really look at that common sense part where there's times where, so I've been called out a couple times for supporting union bills. And am I generally in favor of unions? Probably not. But does that mean every bill that a union brings forth is a bad bill? I don't think so. The one that I got called out just recently for was, if you're a teacher and you work 9 months, you get credited 1 year of PERS. If you're a teacher's assistant and you're in the classroom the exact same amount of days, the exact same classroom as that teacher, as a teacher's assistant, you only got 0.8 days of PERS, 0.8 years of PERS. So
right.
You had to work almost 35 years to get the same retirement as a teacher who worked 30 years. And to me, that's not fair. So my common sense was you need to treat the teacher's assistant the same as the teacher for the exact same amount of days in the exact same classroom. And so I voted in favor of that. And that was a bill that was brought forth by the unions. And I took a little bit of slack from that for supporting a union bill. Another union bill that I supported was, if you're a contractor and you hire staff and you're supposed to pay them, say you're supposed to pay them overtime, a lot of especially in southern Nevada, a lot of their employees are, maybe on green cards, or hopefully it should all be legal, but you're not sure exactly where everyone stands. And so there's companies that said, our company doesn't pay overtime. And so that some of these employees were scared to say anything, worried about losing their job or maybe their immigration status, or who knows. And so these employers got away without having to pay overtime. And then if they do get caught, you know what the penalty is? You pay them what you should have paid them in the first place. So there's no incentive to be honest. The choice is, well, I can try to cheat, and if I get away with it, I made myself a lot of money. And if I get caught, then I'm right back where I should have been to begin with, and I didn't lose anything. And so the bill, was sponsored by a union, came out that said you'd have to pay double penalties. And to me, that was fair. It's like, we shouldn't incentivize people to not be honest. Let's give them a penalty for being dishonest, and hopefully that'll incentivize them to be honest. And for me, that was just an equity and a bill to treat people fairly. And again, I got some slack for supporting union bills. And so there's some things that are Republican and some things that are Democrat, but I think some things are just common sense. And my wife is always telling me, just do what's best for the people. And if we can do that, I think we'd be a lot better off if we had our best interest was not, are my pro or union or anti-union. I'm pro what's fair for the people.
It sounds like to me you're a statesman in the making. Let's take a break and we'll come right back. Big R in Sparks is located on Bering Boulevard next to Smith's and across from Reed High School. It's a 50,000 square foot hardware store and a whole lot more. It's your spring headquarters with lawn and garden supplies, power equipment, and outdoor living. Big R on Bering Boulevard in Sparks, next to Smith's and across from Reed High School. Big R, hardware, and a whole lot more.
Carson Valley Inn, it's your place for the good times. Carson Valley Inn.
The casino industry drove Nevada's economy for decades. By the 1990s, however, the state's sole industry was in sharp decline. Many were losing their homes, many were leaving the state. Is Reno on track to be the Detroit of the West? Was an October 2010 Reno Gazette-Journal headline. Nevada knew it was time for a change and a time to diversify. Story County took that lead, took risks, invested tens of millions transforming its desert into a place of opportunity and a future for Nevada families needing something new. That desert now provides thousands of high-paying tech, advanced manufacturing, and energy careers at companies like Tesla, Panasonic, Google, Switch, and Redwood Materials. Story County transformed northern Nevada forever, and the tide of opportunity has raised all vessels through construction contracts, high-paying careers, and the power of payroll. Tens of millions have been generated in sales and property tax, permits, and other revenues for Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, and for all of Nevada. Enough, in fact, to generate a surplus after public services are provided. And best of all, a sustainable economic climate has been created, enabling our children to stay in Nevada and live prosperous lives in their home state. Story County, improving northern Nevada one industry at a time.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Assemblyman Greg Koenig of District 38, which is based in Churchill County, but covers 5 counties, correct?
5 counties.
Which is, by the way, completely insane. At some point, we need to expand the legislature to allow people who represent rural Nevada to not have to put 500,000 miles on their vehicles every year.
They go all the way down to Tonopah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, saving the Fallon noon whistle. So this has been a very controversial issue, mainly based in what's been going on in Minden. What was the situation in Fallon, and how did it come out that this was not going to be an offensive thing to a whole bunch of different communities?
So, it's been a tradition in Fallon for 107 years now that the whistle blows at noon.
And what is the reason?
And I'll tell you here in 2 seconds, but I probably received more email and texts from my constituents in Fallon over this issue than I probably did all my other issues combined. So it was something that's pretty important to Fallon. The problem is the whistle in Minden started out as a sunset whistle in like 1916.
Meaning that a certain group of people were told to get out of town when that whistle blew.
It would blow at 6 o'clock at night, and that meant that the Native Americans had to be out of town. They had to leave, which is sad, and it's racist, it's an offensive, and I don't think that's something we should support. Part of the problem is last session there was a bill that made them stop the whistle at 6 o'clock. So they stopped it at 6, but they started it up at 5 and called it the freedom whistle. But the legislatures who brought that forward looked at that as an attempt to, bypass the intent of the law, and that didn't satisfy them, so they came back this time getting rid of all whistles, because they're like, we can't leave any loopholes at all. If we say you can keep a noon whistle, they were afraid that Minden would just switch their whistle till noon, and even though it didn't have, origins at noon, it still originated in some racist behavior. So I called the museum in Fallon and had them do a deep dive, and they came back with a thick packet of lots and lots of news articles and when it all started. And it all started in Fallon as a way to call in the volunteer fire department. We still have, I think, one of the best fire departments in the whole United States. And I'm not 100% sure of the rankings, but they're ranked a number 1, which is the highest you can get, and they're the only 100% volunteer fire department that has that ranking. So So we're pretty proud of our fire department. But when they first got it back in 1917, it wasn't completely reliable. And they needed, this is before the times of cell phones and pagers, and the only way that the people knew that there was an emergency or a fire for the volunteer firefighters to come in was they heard the big whistle. So they started testing it at noon every single day to make sure that it worked, so that if later throughout the day they heard the whistle, they knew to come in. I mean, even today, if you hear the whistle and it's not noon, you know to look in your rearview mirror for flashing lights because the volunteer fire guys are coming over and you pull over. So it's still important. And so I was able to talk to Senator Harris, who sponsored the bill, and was able to convince her that yes, our whistle didn't have any racial overtones or undertones, and that she said if I could find a way to come up with an amendment that would allow them to discontinue the whistle in Minden but keep the whistle in Fallon, she would be okay with that. But I had to come up with the amendment because she's like, I'm not sure how legislatively I can do that. So I worked with the city attorney in Fallon, and I worked with LCB, and we talked to legal over there on the Hill, and I came up with the idea of doing a population cap. And that's what we're going to do, is because Douglas has a lot more, a bigger population than Fallon, and so you set the rate of any county as big as Douglas can't, any county smaller can, because I believe there's a noon whistle in Eureka that has the same purpose. But even now, the whistle is, I think they bought it maybe in the 70s, but it's an old whistle. You have computers and everything, but how it works is you have a secretary or the person that works there on their cell phone. The second that it says 12 o'clock, they flip the switch, and it goes woo, and then I don't know for how many seconds they undo it. So it's not like it's an automated thing. They're still testing it every day, and that's what the state or the national, I don't have the acronym, but the National Firefighters Association recommends that you test your whistle daily. And so looks like we saved the Fallon noon whistle. So we didn't accomplish anything. We accomplished one thing here.
Okay, well, it was pretty significant, and if you got agreement from Senator Harris, that's a good thing too. And I'm sure we'll be having people on from Minden to discuss this further. Sure. But let's take another break, and we'll be right back.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Located in the heart of Carson City, the Bank Saloon is a historic watering hole with a modern feel. With a variety of classic cocktails featuring Nevada spirits, space for private events, conferences, and an incredible atmosphere, the Bank Saloon offers a great location to work and play. Come visit us. Located at the corner of 5th and Carson, we'll save you a drink.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the air conditioning back on today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why sweat for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your air conditioning fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with freshman Assemblyman Greg Koenig of District 38, which is Churchill County. Your county is going to see a tremendous amount of growth if Congressman Mark Amadei's lands bill goes through. So you're talking about the Hazen Industrial Park, you're talking about TRI 2. How do you feel about this? Because it's going to be a lot of industrial, potentially bigger than TRI 1.
Yeah, when previous to being as an assemblyman, I was a county commissioner, and so we dealt, with all of that coming in. It's a balance. One of the issues we have is housing. We have a huge housing shortage. So
Yes.
if you're potentially going to bring in a whole lot of industry, but you don't have anywhere for them to live, that's a bit of a problem. And it's a balancing act on, we want to keep the small town feel, but if you're not progressing, if you're not growing, you're dying. You can't just stand still. It doesn't work that way. And I think Churchill County's been fairly aggressive in recruiting, and that the one at the acronym for the place out at Hazen, I think they're calling it CHIP, which is Churchill Hazen Industrial Park. CHIP, I guess, has a nice ring to it, but,
right.
But that's what they're calling it. And the potential there is huge. It's on the rail. It's right on the railway, so they can hook up to the railway and go wherever they want. They're talking about potentially doing a road that connects Hazen out to I-80 from there, so that the trucks can access that area. And it's pretty exciting, and it's exciting maybe a little bit scary at the same time. It's a pretty big jump, but I think Churchill County is ready for it, and I think it's going to benefit the county and the city. And
it's not like it's a 5-minute project. This is something that's going to take 20, 30 years minimum to get completed. But what a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I was really pleased to read the article about you in the Fallon Post, and that told me so much about you. So I was glad to know that you had this really long background. You weren't just a freshman assemblyman, but you've been involved in the political world for a long time. So thank you for coming on, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and we'll be right back.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
When in Carson City, Nevada Newsmakers records in the conference room at the Bank Saloon. Coverage of the 2023 legislative session is brought to you by Liberty Dental Plan, making members shine one smile at a time. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you. The Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, your RTC, our community. NV Energy, proudly serving Nevada, providing electricity to 2.4 million electric customers. And by Nevada Builders Alliance, building a better Nevada.
Our thanks to the Bank Saloon in Carson City and the Builders Alliance for their help with our coverage of the 2023 legislative session. We'll see you on the next broadcast.